on, everyone? My name's Alex. That's Eileen. And you guys are watching Straight to the Chicane podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the Canadian GP. We got big stuff. We were there.
Ooh.
We drove 8.5, 9 hours to get there. We watched qualifying and practice in the rain. And we watched the sunny race.
We did. We missed out on Friday. But turns out there wasn't much on Friday.
There wasn't much on Friday. It was mostly watching the rainfall, really.
Yes, which we did enjoy.
Yeah.
In the city.
So today we're going to be talking what our thoughts were about the Canadian GP, what we liked, what we didn't like.
We've got a lot to unpack.
We do. And then we'll talk a little bit about the qualifying and the race. So first, how was the weekend? Did you enjoy your trip to the Canadian GP overall?
Yeah, of course. I feel like I'm always going to enjoy race weekend regardless. I'm like, no matter what the complaints can potentially be, you got to fight through it. It's worth it being there for a race in person. So, yes, I enjoyed it. I even enjoyed driving there. I mean, I like to make the car a good time, have some fun, enjoy ourselves.
It was a really easy drive for us living in Metro Detroit. Getting across the border and then into Canada is really easy for us. It was kind of a last minute thing. It
was.
You decided to say, hey, let's go. I kind of mentioned it a while ago.
We talked about it on the last podcast. We were like, should we go? Should we not?
Yeah. So we didn't even have tickets until,
like a week before.
Yeah, and they weren't too bad. Compared to other places, Miami, Austin, even Vegas tickets, they're actually fairly reasonably priced.
Yeah, and with the currency exchange, we definitely lucked out in our favor. So yeah, but it was well worth it. We got pretty much the full experience. I mean, we got obviously practice 3, which was a little rain, a little craziness, a little mixed up grid, and then qualifying was interesting, and the race was good. So it was an overall good experience for us.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys really know, or if you do, that's great. The Canadian GP, it's on an island. It's really small, an island they built back in, I think, the early 60s or whatever for the World's Fair, and now they do a lot of like road competitions there, and then they have a F1 track there that is a mix between a full-time track and an open park. Mm-hmm. So they don't keep grandstands there for the most part. And when it's open to the public, I believe you can drive on it normally.
Yeah.
So
it's a street circuit.
Yeah.
So, yes. No, I'm like, that was the most interesting part, I would say, coming from only going to American tracks. I mean, but Miami is technically a street circuit too. So
technically
it's tough. But this one, taking public transportation, imagine hundreds of thousands of people cramming in to all take the same, way to get to the stadium and the same way to get out. So lines galore.
All right, so let's break that down just a little bit more. So
be prepared to wait in line.
So, like a lot of European tracks, they don't really have car parking. They're not really made for car parking. This place in particular in Montreal, it's on an island just outside of downtown. They don't really have parking on the island for anything. And so, we had to take public transit from the major downtown area and come into the island. And so did just about, I think, all 300,000 people. That came.
Yeah, I think some people took the ferry across or, took a boat back to the mainland. But those are your two options.
Yeah.
Which really, when you put it into perspective, yes, we're all like, especially as Americans, we're always like, we need it now. We need to like get it done and get through and get out of here type of behavior. It really wasn't too bad. No. I mean, qualifying, we zipped out of there pretty quick. The race, of course, is a little bit different, but.
So, we planned accordingly. We got there fairly early. I think we were there before 10 o'clock or right around 10 o'clock every day, both days. And taking the transit over the subway or whatever you want to call it was actually really easy. We bought a weekend fare. We parked within one stop really of the actual venue.
I think the cheapest parking we've ever paid for any type of event ever. For it to be the biggest event in Montreal
and the closest
and like how close we were
to the venue that
I would have expected to pay like $100 American.
Yeah, typically here in America, like in Miami, for example, we had to pay for parking passes. Mm-hmm. Same with Austin. They want you to pay for parking passes, and then you pay for the parking lot wherever it is. And it's like anywhere between, I believe it's $50 to $100 for the weekend. And then here it was nothing. And then when we pulled out of the parking garage, it was a $9 Canadian fee.
So it was like $7.
$7,
which is crazy. Even the parking the night before, we went out downtown. The parking the night before was what, like $12?
Yeah, because we parked in like an open lot with.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They would charge us if there was a concert or any type of event going on. They would probably charge us like $50 here.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, Taylor Swift was just here, and I'm sure all those were all like $50 to $100 parking here in Detroit.
That was a steal. That was a steal.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Honestly, it was a really affordable place to go compared to Miami, Vegas, and Austin. Like,
honestly, we spent the least amount of money going to Montreal.
Yeah.
Last minute. I mean, not just the tickets, of course, but everything in general. Now, granted, we have a lot of F1 merch, so you're going to pay the same price for F1 merch. No matter what track you go to, it's going to be the standard price. If you want to, buy it in advance on the team's site, and you're good. You're Gucci.
I would, definitely recommend buy it online. Buying it there, we've noticed too. Like, so they have all the events that in the major cities. So like. They had a place called Crescent Street, and it was all closed down. It was really close to where like the drivers' hotels were, and it's all F1, and they have stores, and they have pop-up shops and things like that. We walked into one of the pop-up shops. Everything was, I don't know, 20 or 30 Canadian dollars more than when we walked over to the actual
the circuit
event area where it was still overpriced, but it was $30 cheaper.
Right.
Just within walking distance.
I know. That's pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy, and
we paid those prices in Miami.
Yeah.
Because we went to like every pop-up shop and we bought stuff from everywhere we went.
We did, and we did experience it a little differently in Miami. We went all out.
We went all out.
It was fun.
We did better in Austin last year, but this was the most affordable.
But I will say that they had a lot more merch at the Miami and a lot more like cool things going on than they did here. Look, we got to go watch Crofty do a Q&A,
he did trivia night, F1 trivia night
on Friday night when we got into town. He was there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And that was pretty cool. So we got to see him for a little bit, and so things like that happen at all these events. So right. You never get to know who you get to run to. We were really close, hanging out, having dinner by the drivers' hotels, and who knows who was driving by, but there was like tons and tons of people
waiting at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah, they're all waiting.
Yeah.
The amount of we have photos. We'll be dumping a huge photo dump on social media here real soon about our excursions and everything like that. But it was a good time overall.
Yes.
The downsides are, if you're ready.
The downsides are lines, and lines. Oh my God, I've never waited in so many lines. We waited in a hot dog line to buy the hot dog, but it was just to buy the bag. Then you had to wait in line to get the hot dog in the bag. Hot dogs, okay? So, and then, I mean, obviously, if you're going to a rain track, you got to be prepared for anything. I mean, typical weather for Canada, you never know what you're going to get, especially this, time of year. It was there was puddles everywhere.
So let me say, I told her going into it.
Are you gonna explain that I made the mistake of wearing white shoes?
She brought white tennis shoes, even though I told her going into the
trip
that it was gonna rain and it's gonna be rainy. And I don't know the conditions. It's a park.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the last two places we've gone to for the tracks, they are cement everywhere, good little footpaths everywhere.
Well, Austin, it's hot. It's like 95 degrees.
Yeah, but it does rain there for a second, and there has been a race. I think the very first race at Austin, it rained, and it was one epic race. If you haven't seen it, watch it. But what I mean is like, we got here, and yes, there were a lot of lines everywhere. It was easiest for us to get to the track. We got there fairly early. We definitely beat the crowds. Yeah. So the only line that we had getting into it was the one bridge that gives you access to the island that you have to walk on, and that wasn't even super bad. It was flowing, right? So that wasn't bad. That was the easiest line, but it was right when we got to the island off the metro.
Yeah.
I could only imagine if you were later in the day, closer to like the start of trying to get there, it would probably have been tougher. Mm-hmm. You know, but yeah, back to the puddles, back to the thing that like
puddles everywhere. Puddles everywhere.
Yeah.
Like puddles everywhere.
I
And
would say
the puddles cause the lines in a lot of cases. I think, like, for me, even wearing white shoes, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going in the puddle. Yeah. The puddle typically wasn't that deep, but what's happening is people are like, oh my God, there's a puddle. People are wearing heels. People are wearing sandals. People are wearing stuff that they shouldn't be wearing at a track. So the lines are backed up, causes even more commotion, gets crazy. People are drinking. Tension gets hot, gets a little crazy. So.
Yeah. And here's another thing is other tracks that we've been to, for another example, is that they were easy to kind of get around, you know. Mm-hmm. We pretty much were able to walk around both other places fairly easily without any bottlenecking. This place is kind of secluded, so in order to get from so I don't know if we've even said it where we sat. We sat at the hairpin. So coming out of the hairpin,
start of Sector 3.
Start of Sector 3, coming out of the hairpin and going onto the first main straight, right where the DRS is open, is right where we sat. And good vantage point of watching them enter the hairpin and then coming out of the hairpin onto the straight. That's what our view really, really was.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was a lot of waiting, and then we were watching a delayed video signal with the big screen that we had. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of watch the helicopter kind of coming by to tell you when they're like
you wait for the helicopter to show you where they're going to be coming.
Yeah, that's when you knew things were kind of coming back, because everything's not super loud. Like, you know, once the cars are there, yeah, it's loud.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not as loud as what they used to be, or even what Indy cars are right now. But yeah, I think, you know, really, they could have done a different, better job. I'm going to keep bringing it back because we're still kind of talking about the cons of the places. The puddles, you know, they weren't really fully prepared for, the rain and I guess the amount of people. I wonder, if this was a record for them.
I don't think it was.
You know, I think it was close. Yeah. You know, I don't know. And, you know, how much rain have they had before? I mean, normally it's a typically rain area prone to a lot of weather and everything like that. I felt like they should have been more prepared, and honestly, we didn't get to see the other half of the island. We didn't get to see anywhere near turn 1 or coming out of turn 2 or anything like that. We didn't even walk over there. We didn't see the pit straight. We didn't even, for this first time, we didn't even walk on the track.
I know.
At the end.
We were lazy this time.
I think we were a little lazy, and just how far away we kind of were. It wasn't. By the time we would have got there to watch the ceremony, it probably would have been halfway over.
I think I had PTSD from like qualifying day trying to leave, and we were literally gridlocked in like a mosh pit of people in between free practice and qualifying that like we couldn't even get anywhere, like to a bathroom, to a food station, to anything. It was so crazy and chaotic. We ended up walking in a circle and just getting back to the same spot because like every place was so overcrowded that it was overwhelming. So it was, you know, it was tough. I will say that, but I think we were also a little lazy.
I think our plan was to go get some lunch between practice 3 and qualifying, and apparently it was everybody else's idea, and
well,
that's
of course.
True, right?
Yeah.
You know, the thing is I think next game plan is for us in Austin is we're staying in an RV, so we're going to be able to walk back to the RV, so it's going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. But you know, maybe we bring food with us for ourselves, like sandwiches and things like that. I think that's kind of what the next move is, you know?
Well, that's the thing is it's like we were very spoiled being on the track in Austin. Like that experience, especially if you're going to choose, I think, any of the American races, I feel like Austin is the best. I mean, of course, if you want to go for like the anomaly and just the, you know, excitement of Vegas, like if you can go do that, of course. But Austin, the track is just laid out so well. And then, of course, we were there on track. So just the flexibility to be able to go back and forth. And we were at turn 1. So it's just, you know, I don't know. I feel like comparing it to that. Still a great experience. The one thing I will say that was unusual to see is there was no water stations anywhere.
There were.
Oh, I didn't see any.
There was a few.
Oh, I didn't see enough, and we didn't see enough trash cans.
Definitely not enough trash cans. And then I would say possibly because of the rain on Friday after practice 2, that all the staff just got out of the island. They just left because they didn't really replace any of the bathroom stuff or any of the toiletry, the toilet paper or anything like that, because on Saturday, right from the beginning, I would tell you every bathroom that we went into didn't have toilet paper.
Well, it did torrential downpour on Friday.
It did.
So it was like torrential downpour on Friday, like barely could see anything. I mean, it rained super heavy in the city too, and we had to take cover. But, of course, I mean, it's this huge event. I don't want it to be a total rag session on the weekend. It was still a great experience.
It was.
We, of course, are just comparing it to, previous experiences.
Yeah.
Still really, good experience. I would take seats over the bleachers any day. I think the bleachers were a little tough for us too. Just, like if you got a big butt or, whatever, you end up taking a little bit more space. And so you're sitting right on top of somebody else. But, we made friends with our neighbors and
as much as we could.
Much as we could, yeah.
It was, some good racing. The midfield, once we get into this weekend here, there was a lot of passing, actually. There was a little bit of damage with Russell.
Self-inflicted.
Qualifying was wet, got dry, got wet again.
Qualifying was good.
Qualifying was really good. We sat and got soaked.
I kind of like the experience of being in the rain, though, because you always see it on TV and you're like, man, I can't believe these people are trooping it out. It's not even a question whether or not you're going to stay or not. It's like, whatever. It's raining. Mm-hmm. I mean, I showed up trying to be cool, in some cool gear or whatever. Ended up immediately with basically a trash bag on. I ended up tying it because it ripped on my head. It
was a poncho that was prepared, yeah.
Yeah, it was basically a plastic bag. But then I got a better poncho because he's always extra prepared. But, I think you just deal with the elements. Max said that, when they were asking him, what do you think about the fans sticking out? And he's like, man, they don't even blink. They just, starts raining, stand up, put your coat on, and get back to it. So
I think that's what you have to. I think we're all, if you're here, and you're a true diehard. I mean, look, every time I've gone to a race now, and granted, I'm still even fairly new to I've only been maybe really watching this fully for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years at most.
Yeah.
We still see people that are really new, and it's still, people that are there for bachelor parties. So their friends, their friend is a huge fan of Formula One, and they're not, so people don't even know what's going on even around us, and yet they're still even trooping it out.
Yeah.
And granted, I don't know if they were there for qualifying or not. I can't speak on that. All I know is that we were there, and there was plenty of other people around us that were here for qualifying too.
You don't see anybody get up and leave. I mean, we left with I think there was one car on the track because we knew qualifying was over. No one's times were going to improve because, as you guys all know who've watched qualifying, it got to a point where it needed to be full wets and no one was going to improve, So it was taken care of, and it was just literally raining cats and dogs. So
so with that, I guess the hate session or the love session, however you guys view
the
it.
experience session. No hate to the Canadians.
I think we can start talking. No, it was great. It was very affordable race. Plan is to go again for sure. Probably in a different seat.
Yeah, I want to be in Sector 1.
She complains about she didn't like Sector 3 for some reason.
There wasn't enough action. Nothing really happened by us.
Just because you didn't get to see the actual hairpin where the things were kind of happening. If we had maybe a different section that viewed the hairpin so you could see the whole turn, you might have had a different...
I expected it to be a little bit more of a hot commodity. I will say the one thing I like, before we get into it, the one thing I really liked is how close to the track you are.
Yeah.
I felt like I could see the drivers when they drove by. I could see their face and their reaction. And we were pretty high up. We were in row O or whatever. And so, that's pretty high up, and still being able to have such close visibility to them, that was pretty cool. So
I would say, I think the seating is
better.
Really a whole lot closer than really what Miami offered. Because Miami, everything was really low. Everything was really flat. Granted, we were general admission then.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to see any elevation of bleachers or seats or anything like that. And then Austin is just really nice rolling meadow hills. So from the vantage where we were, it was, we could see just about everything. I think we lost the cars for maybe 2 or 3 moments. But other than that, from turn 1, grandstands, you can see the entire race happening live from your seat, which is pretty incredible. However, you're right, because it's a true racetrack, everything's farther away. Mm-hmm. Everything is farther away. And we were really quite far away. The grandstands are set, I don't know, let's just say 50 yards back.
Oh, you have that huge area of general admission, too, in front of you. Yeah. Whereas in Montreal, the general admission areas are like, it's kind
of like Miami, just
wherever you don't have a whole lot of room. So that's the hard part. But
I mean, they had guys cutting holes on the stairs, and to watch on the steps and things like that. And then for the day of the race, they had security kind of regulating. I think
they did it a little bit at first, but then it probably got too crazy. That was my last comment for now.
So I think we got to talk about qualifying now. We've been talking for a little bit here.
We have,
Qualifying was probably one of the better qualifyings that we've seen. We've seen really good qualifyings this year, for sure.
It's been mixed up qualifying almost like every weekend, I would say. There's always somebody that's like, why are you where you are?
It's like Haas popping in somewhere.
Yeah, why is Haas on the front row?
They're sneakily good when conditions are uneasy, when it's
That's because they always go out immediately and put a banker lap in.
And so that was really big thing for qualifying to talk about is Hülkenberg had it timed right. I think they did. They came out early because he was able to keep himself in good second, and he got into Q3. He got into third qualifying 3. So right away, things were kind of drying up out of Q2. So coming into Q3, it was about as dry as it was looking like it was getting. And then they were talking about 90% chance of rain.
So everybody went out on intermediates.
Yep.
And then changed to slicks.
Pretty much after the first lap, they went out on
the track was drying. Even you were like, the track is dry. The track is dry. Why are they out here? You can
see it, man. It's incredible. We see it on TV on every race, on a rain to dry race or whatever, the lines that form. But how fast it happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, within a couple of laps, literally the racing line was just, you could see it was bone dry.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because before qualifying even starts, they send out 10 SUVs, the safety car, the medical car, the FIA, and they're all driving 100 miles an hour around the track to kind of move the water. Yeah. They've got their machines out there. Yeah. They're doing their best to try and get things where it needs to be. So, but yeah, we before we get into Q3, we saw who again was out in Q2? Perez, Leclerc.
Yeah, some big hitters.
Some big names
again.
Even
kind of Bottas, too.
2 weekends in a row. So, unusual to see. I think the big thing is Perez and obviously Leclerc.
So
Leclerc, we think they got it wrong because it was Q2 that they should have switched to slicks.
Well, we heard him on the radio
and
too.
He wanted slicks, and they sent him on inners, and did Ferrari make a strategy mistake again for qualifying.
Yeah, he pretty much got on the radio and said the tires weren't ready, and he wanted slicks, and he
asked for them. So
they just weren't. They made a bad call then, but they
redeemed themselves on Sunday.
I was a little scared, and I think most Ferrari fans were a little worried,
I was too.
I
didn't know what was happening. So,
but yeah, he didn't make it out of Q2. Leclerc struggled a little bit, and then shocker Perez. So he's P2 in the driver standings, barely at this point, right?
Yeah, I think it's 9 points in between Alonso and Perez.
He's getting to the point where he needs to start holding on to P2 for the driver standing because. Right now, Max is kind of running away with it.
Perez is having, I think said this weekend, he's like, I don't know why there's no pace in my car.
I don't know why there's no pace in his car either.
I don't know either.
I mean, typically, I don't know what it is. He's, he was the king of the streets, and then he hit one of the last street circuits and kind of struggled a little, and then hasn't.
It's been tough since Monaco. So
it has been tough since Monaco. Yep.
Yeah. So okay. What else? Q3, we had both McLarens again in Q3.
We had Ocon.
Ocon is like, just Mr. Consistency.
Yeah. He's growing on me a little bit too. He's.
Yeah,
you've been saying it for a while.
I've been saying it from the beginning. I just think that Ocon, he's a good guy, and I think he's consistent. Now, Alpine, their car is very inconsistent. So it doesn't really help him. But I do feel like he's always in the mix, like always in that 5 to 7 range. We saw him on the podium in Monaco. So I feel like, he's one that's up there, high midfield, doing a good job. I'm like, what else? So we had Hülkenberg was our surprise runner. No surprise on Max. He was faster than fast could be. I think, technically when qualifying came push to shove, he was over a second ahead.
So when there was that brief dry moment in Q3, Hülkenberg was able to get that nice time down, and then Verstappen just put down a monster lap just pretty much at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then right after he put that down, the rains came in, and nobody was able to even come close. However, the big thing is you got to talk about is Pierre Gasly kind of got blocked.
Yeah,
in Q1 and in the qualifying 1 session when there was the most cars on track, and there was a lot of things that kind of happened. There was a lot of impeding drivers that kind of happened.
There was a lot that happened.
And that was the big thing kind of coming out of qualifying. Like, there was a lot of big news because Hülkenberg was huge news. Qualifying P2, putting down the lap, and then we're like, all right. And then we get the announcement that he gets a grid place penalty.
Yeah, so he got one for speeding under the red flag.
So speeding under the red flags, who was caused by... I forget who it was. Was it the Albon crash? Or the UK? Yeah, it was the Joe, probably.
Yeah, I don't even remember. We had that's the other thing is we had 10 red flags this weekend.
We did.
We went from not having red flags or safety cars to having a whole lot that happened. We, seemed to kind of gloss over that a little bit. But there was that. So we had some impeding. We had the speeding from Hülkenberg. So we've had three drivers, Sainz.
Yep.
Stroll and Hülkenberg, and Stroll just never has good luck at home. Just never. I feel like never has a good race at home. I don't know if it's just a home race curse or what it is, but so they all had 3-place grid drops, which of course moved everybody up, which unusually Ferrari, Leclerc is out in Q2, Sainz is into Q3, but Leclerc is starting ahead of Sainz. Crazy. And then of course Hülkenberg, dropping down to P5 moves Hamilton up to the second row.
Yeah,
so it's an all Mercedes second row, and
Russell moved up too.
And then of course Alonso and Max again starting on the front row.
I would say definitely for the race, and it was true at the start of the race too that the cars that were on the racing line definitely had a better start.
Yeah.
If you were off the racing line, so position 2, position 4. Position 6, those even numbers, they were off the racing line, and I just don't think that track really got rubbered in at all this weekend. Mm-hmm.
There was so much rain that there really wasn't much.
And there wasn't a whole lot of, there wasn't F2 there wasn't F3 there. The only thing that was there was
a Ferrari and the 1600.
The Ferrari class car, and then, the 1600 series.
The tiny
Canada.
Cars. Yeah, the teeny cars.
Yeah. And that was cool. Those were really good.
That was a good race. You remember that?
I do.
Oh my God, that was so good. So
qualifying, was good because of wet. Bummer that Verstappen put down a monster number, and then we got a bummer again that Hülkenberg, who did a good job, got the penalty for speeding under the red flag.
And okay, let's be realistic now. So Hülkenberg, where did he finish?
Where did he finish in the race? Oh, man.
So, if he would have started P2, how long would it have taken for him to be overtaken? Or,
Hülkenberg finished 15th with a lap down.
Yeah. So, obviously great qualifying.
Yeah.
Really good. But putting it into perspective, I'm
Haas is just still not there on the pace for race pace.
Exactly. So, it would have maybe taken a lap or two. And depending on the start, who knows what would have happened. So,
You're right.
So it is what it is. But yes, qualifying was good entertainment. So
yeah, so it was, and it was honestly the best qualifying we watched live, I believe, so far. If I'm being honest, because the last one we watched was down in Austin, and it was pretty straightforward as far as I remember.
Carlos was on pole,
and then
Max, and then Lewis, and then Russell, and Russell hit Carlos into turn one. It was pretty good.
Qualifying was different than the actual lap one hit.
I think that it was a lot closer, so like they were going back and forth in Austin, because we're towards the end of the season when you're there.
You're right.
So
and
the cars are a little bit more in line.
This is what? Race 9?
This is race 9, and we've already been to 4 continents. Crazy.
So let's talk about the actual race then.
Let's talk about it.
So I woke up in the morning there. I'm like, oh man, is it going to rain? And going into it, it was the least likely chance of rain, the best day for sun. And honestly, sunny day, beautiful day, a little cloudy. When the clouds were out, it was perfect temp. When the sun was out, it was a little hot.
It did get a little toasty.
And we got there again early to enjoy the day. And everything was drying out. It was a much better situation for puddles and bathrooms and everything was like that. It was a little bit better. Other than when you needed lunch and you wanted to get in line. We got to even see, before we get into the race, your favorite fans, the Max Verstappen.
The Orange Army.
The Orange Army. There was about, I think...
It was like 10 men with suit coats on.
They weren't... With the orange tie.
Yeah, it was like... It was well done.
It was.
It was well done.
It's good seeing them out because
it was like a dry fit jersey. It was a dry fit jacket. That was
suit jacket.
It was the Dutch flag with I think a black undershirt and then the orange tie or something. But they're all matching. Looked like some OG fans that had Max 33. So I was trying to determine when you become a part of this army or any
I think
fan,
we need to be told how
any
is
fan
a
group
form or what is it?
It doesn't matter because it's any fan group, but obviously speaking to this, it was all of them in sync wearing the same outfit.
They planned to go to the races.
They all friends? Do they travel in? Did they link up on a Facebook or an Instagram account or Reddit or what and be like, yo, because they decided before Max was a world champion, they were like, we'll ride or die for this guy. So, do you link up or do you just become all your friends are just diehard fans?
I think some of them travel, treat F1 like it's season, they have season tickets. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will say too, because they were an attraction that people were okay, they're Max fans. Other Max fans and other Red Bull fans were I want to be friends with them. So we may see more people with those jackets next year. True. That's how the link up happens.
True.
So
you're right about that. So let's talk about the race because once we had lights out, it was fairly exciting. Honestly, no hits. No one got really bumped between turn 1, turn 2. Nothing was really out of whack until they came to the hairpin where there was some midfields kind of made some passes right away on turn 1 or on lap 1. But other than that, right from the jump, Lewis got a really good start and was able to get ahead of Alonso. And that was because I believe, again, it was the position of the even number slots being on.
Well, that and something was wrong with Alonso's car.
But didn't he say overall there was something wrong with the car. But I don't think he necessarily had an issue off the start of it.
No,
he said he was fine. He was just slow. And
right. Well, he also didn't know in post-race because he didn't have the time to get to talk to them. But his engineer came over on the radio at the end of the race and said, they had an issue. But at some point during the race, also, Lewis is where did the damage come from? And Bono's oh, it's from George's car. So did that mean that Lewis had damage too? I'm not sure.
It's possible because there was a lot
it's a hot mess.
There was later in the race when Russell did hit the wall, there was a lot of damage. Half of the front wing was gone. Parts of the rear axle, side tire were all over the place. So it's possible that there was some floor damage for sure. Possible. Really the first laps, it was kind of, other than Alonso falling back, he had Russell for a second trying to take him on. But other than that, they kind of fell into form, and Max was kind of running away with it. And
he wasn't running away.
Within 2 or 3 laps, he was already over a second, and there was no DRS for Lewis and for.
It was like 1 second, a little over 1 second, then 2 seconds. It was. Let's just say this is the first race, you guys, that we saw a car within 10 seconds to Max
at the finish.
Yes. So.
And then you also have to say there was also a yellow flag restart.
Okay, there was. Yes.
So that kind of brought everything in, like at whatever lap that was at, like lap 20 or something like that. When did I forget when Russell hit the wall? What lap that was?
Oh my God, it was like 20, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I'm like, we had Sargent retired on lap 7, which is his first DNF of the season.
First DNF, and it's funny because Albon was actually really good.
Well, Albon, so we got to talk about Albon because Albon had a great weekend. Yeah. He was the star of the weekend. You know, obviously Hülkenberg was the star of qualifying, but Albon was the only car out of Williams to have the upgrades. So there was a ton of upgrades going into Williams to see how they, worked.
It seems like they're kind of working.
Seems like they're working. We know that they have good straight line speed, which there's I feel like the whole track is straight.
It's a pretty straight
And
turn.
so, I mean, he did great defending. A lot of memes out there of Albon. Driver of the day, hands down, did a great job.
For sure.
So.
You're right. He was driver of the day for Albon because he did finish P7 compared to Sargent. And Sargent had a critical warning, pull over immediately, get off the road, and he pulled over in a pretty good spot, and the marshals were able to get it out of there pretty quickly. It was a virtual safety car, and it was over within 1 lap, I believe. Forget who pitted. Was it Max that pitted? Was it all the top guys that pitted when he went off, right? Because it was all that perfect timing for them because they were probably coming around.
It was for George. They all pit under George.
Because
remember?
Yeah. No one pitted.
George came in.
No one. Yeah, the top guys did not pit.
Max came in, so then Lewis came in, so then Alonso came in because once the whole George incident happened, Max was, of course, taking the lead, but Lewis and Alonso were pretty close. And, Alonso, of course, and Lewis had their little incident in the pit lane.
There seemed a little bit of incident. So Mercedes held up Lewis just a little bit longer.
It was a lot. It was a pretty slow pit stop.
It was a second slower than Aston Martin, pretty much.
So they came out basically right at the same time with just a small.
It
was a good enough gap that the FIA felt like there wasn't going to be a penalty.
Yeah, because immediately after that happened, Norris came out in front of.
I don't even remember.
It was either Albon or...
It was like an AlphaTauri, I think, or something. Yeah, Nick DeVries, maybe.
And that was a whole lot closer, and he really did have to brake in order to maintain that. And so I would say that was even noted, and I don't think he got a penalty for that at all.
No, they didn't. Neither one of them got penalties for the pit lane incident. But so they pit under that,
what's funny is that you're right, because George Russell did hit the wall, and it was pretty bad damage, but he was able to get back to the pits. They were able to fix the front wing, and they were able to put new tires on and get him back out there. So essentially, Mercedes did a double stop because it was the same lap that they all did it. It was just so far back.
Are you trying to say it was a double stack?
It was kind of a double stack.
It was not.
Because it was the same lap.
Wasn't a double stack.
Kind of.
A double stack is them coming in at the same time.
I understand, but
doing back to back.
Yeah, but it was, but it was like they had to go. But also,
Lewis is in the front, P2, and George is in the back,
coming around
with like a 40 second pit stop or something crazy.
But essentially, same lap, pit stops.
Okay,
it's all good.
Same lap, pit stops.
On paper, they pitted
not a double stack. Same lap, pit stop.
On paper, they pitted at the same lap.
Okay, so got it.
You could.
All right, kudos to Mercedes, I guess. Congratulations.
Even though it's slow.
Now, who didn't pit is the Ferraris.
Right, and we were all. I was concerned. I think people around us at the race were a little concerned that they didn't pit. They were on a set of mediums, and they were going long. And I think they were trying to pick Carlos, and he said no and stayed out.
I think it was Leclerc.
I think it was Carlos.
I think it was Leclerc because Leclerc was.
I'll bet you.
Someone's
going to have to give us the answer on
that. Leclerc was leading. He was the lead Ferrari.
Yeah.
And so I think it was his decision to stay out. But they got it right. We got to give Ferrari some kudos. So congratulations to them for some race day strategy. I mean, with Leclerc starting and Sainz starting like way down, at the end of the day, finishing P4 and P5, pretty impressive.
Definitely played it right. You're absolutely correct. I was shocked. I was wrong. Ferrari fans were elated to get back being fourth and fifth, the final, pretty good points.
They had good pace too. They actually had pretty good pace. So that was good. I mean, I think the midfield was definitely where the action was. And then, of course, Alonso and Lewis, who just, I feel like this season, Alonso and Lewis have just, put on a good show, the two of them. And I don't know if it's just because of, all the stuff around them just being previous teammates and, the drama in the past or what. It's just been so enjoyable to watch them kind of battle each other. Now, I know you are, because I'm all, oh my God, look at them. They're all best friends, like Max and Lewis on the podium last week in Spain, and they're just, seem like they're best of friends. This week, just their respect and all the admiration for each other. I'm like, look at this. But then it's once they're going wheel to wheel, what's this going to look like? So
for sure. I mean, look, they're multi-millionaires having a good time in their life, racing good cars.
Multi-millionaires or multi-world champions?
Both. Both. And look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, Lewis and Alonso know that Max's car is down the road 9-10 seconds ahead of them.
I know.
It's not a battle yet for them. Hopefully, I was talking to a guy next to me, and we were literally saying, wouldn't it be nice if it was, race 9 and they were all battling. But look, we're getting good battles, directly in the midfield right now. There was a DRS train in this race between P6 to P17, and it was wild. They were all within the second.
It was cool to see them come through.
And it's enjoyable as a fan when you're there because you get to see nonstop action cars happening, but then, they're in a train and they're kind of stuck.
Right.
Which is disappointing on one end too, because the whole benefit of the DRS was to give them the opportunity to try and make passes like the top teams are able to do. And then, so Lewis was in second for most of the race. However, he was not able to stay with Max.
Let's say a quarter of the race.
Yeah, a quarter of the race. And then, coming out after that pit stop.
Alonso had DRS the whole time behind him.
He did.
And was able to get past. And then
it was just a matter of time.
Yeah, Lewis was closing up towards the end, but, hey, it still made for some good showmanship, between them. And, I think that they put on some good fights this year. I think it's going to get closer and closer. So
I think
I'm looking forward to it getting a little bit feistier.
I mean, look, Alonso is about to be, I believe, second in the championship.
So does Alonso.
Yeah, yeah, we're both in agreement. I believe that Max, barring any major incident, is running away with the championship. Mm-hmm. I think it's for him to lose somehow. I don't know how. People tell me wrong. I don't know. We have some fans that like to tell us. You tell me what you guys think.
I think everybody is Red Bull could essentially win every single race this year. We're 9 races in.
We are.
Which is 8 because we didn't do anything in Imola. So we're 8 actual races in, and Red Bull has won every single race. Max has won 6. And I feel like the 2 times that he didn't win is because he had a bad qualifying.
Yeah, which can happen.
Or he had an engine issue. So there's been 2 issues where he had to start and then have a crazy comeback race. And those are the 2 times that he didn't win.
Sure.
So he essentially could have won every single race this year at this point. He's averaging on race weekend 23.5 points when the max is 26. And that's fastest lap and a win.
Well, he didn't get fastest lap this week.
He didn't.
Perez did, which was Red Bull.
Well, he took it from Lewis on the last lap. So.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say Max has led every single lap since
Miami, like lap 34 or something.
Something like since he passed Lewis or whatever it was.
I don't even remember who was winning it.
I forget too.
In Miami, probably.
I think it was.
Checo.
I think he passed Lewis because it was just the way the tire.
I don't think Lewis was leading in Miami. I don't remember who it was, but he has led every lap, and it's the longest. It's like 200 something laps that he's led straight at this point. Because I was looking at a stat from like one of the Instagram Formula Statistics or something. I don't know their account name, but it's like him and Lewis, the top like 5 drivers over this last whatever amount of time, and Max is in the 200s, and it's the first time it's happened. So Max broke a lot. Well, there's a lot of records broken this weekend.
Tell me.
I'm like, Red Bull got their 100th win, which they're the 5th constructor to do it.
Yep.
Max tied Senna's race wins of 41. So there's just, there's a lot of things on the horizon to think he's so young still. It's kind of crazy.
24, 25?
I think he's 25.
So 25 years old. He's on a good track. He's matched now Senna.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, he could essentially win 12 more this year. So
you're not wrong. And there's still a lot of racing still to do.
There is. I think we'll see, of course, engine penalties. We'll see something. We'll, see whatever.
I mean, we will. You're right.
I mean, we haven't seen him crash. We haven't seen anything bad happen. We've just, like one mistake maybe this year in one qualifying session, and that's it. So.
Anything else you want to tell me about the race that I seem to have missed? Because really, Max ran away, 9 seconds ahead. It was the battle for the midfields. The ending with Stroll passing Bottas was nice, and that was a big thing that happened. Stroll was able to get in the points.
Yeah, he was able to get his redemption from Baku 5 years ago. They
brought that up.
Where Bottas passed him on the line for the podium.
And there was also somebody else that did a pass to, I forget.
Well, there was like the battle with Norris and Ocon at the end.
Thank you, yep.
And it was coming down to the wire, last turn. Norris, did he get squeezed by Ocon? Who was ahead? Norris felt like he got pushed off. He finished out of the points because of that.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky part. Then Norris got a penalty, which they didn't tell him until after the race, for unsportsmanlike conduct for going too slow under the safety car.
So he was trying to create a gap for the double stack.
Yes. Well, that's what they think he was doing. So.
Too slow. So he was going below his delta for too long.
And I have never seen an unsportsmanlike conduct.
That was my first time seeing an unsportsmanlike conduct since I've started watching races live.
Yeah, so
I believe so. Correct.
Another weekend of poor luck for McLaren. No points.
Yeah.
After both getting through to Q3. Yeah. So they're expected to bring some huge upgrades. Different, hopefully, aerodynamic package. I don't know. We'll see. Ferrari's bringing more upgrades. Aston Martin upgraded their car this weekend. Don't feel like they got the most potential out of it, so they're expecting more from the next race. 2 more Mercedes upgrades coming. A big one for Silverstone and another one before the summer shutdown. Red Bull's expected to bring a new floor at some point.
You got a lot of knowledge.
There's a lot coming up. So
cars are changing. You're right. Things are coming in.
So hopefully that'll get us some excitement.
I think Alonso and Lewis to say, even Russell is like, get our cars as close to the Red Bull as possible. I think it's going to be a showdown for second.
It's definitely going to be a showdown for second. I mean, it's very close in the constructors. I think Lewis, at this rate, and Alonso will probably both pass Perez. Unless, his confidence shifts, some things change, we'll see. Carlos did get past Russell this weekend because of Russell's DNF. So, he's bumped down the grid a little bit. But, there's a lot more to come.
Okay. So
we're going to Austria next for a sprint weekend.
We have a sprint this weekend. It should be
next weekend.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Next weekend. We have a week off, and then it's on in Austria. And then we have a kind of a decent amount of races before the break.
Yeah.
And Austria is a good track. It's high speed, fast turns. Not a whole lot of long straights. So I think we're going to see. I heard Albon with that. Williams will probably have a little bit of an issue because he likes the straights. His car does really well in straights. I would love to see a battle for the front. We'll see what happens.
It is a home race for Max, though. So
it is. One of his two, essentially.
One of his three, essentially.
Yeah, 3. You're right. All right. I think that's it for me because we've been here long enough. Is that it for you?
Yeah.
If you've been here for this long, thank you guys so much. Drop a like. Follow if you haven't, subscribe to us if you haven't, check us out on social media. We're on IG more, we're on TikTok and other platforms.
We're all over.
We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too.
Yes.
We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you in 2 weeks. All right, bye.